Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to Selenium Python training program. Today we are going to study about unit testing. So first and a most important thing, question will rise in our mind. What is this unit testing? Is it really important for us to learn for automation testing? Yes, of course. It's mandatory for us to learn this unit testing. So, guys, so far, if you clearly observe, we have studied a different scenarios, right? How to handle a drop-down checkbox. Individual scenarios are there. Assume that you are working on an application, and your application you have hundred test cases. For suppose I need to automate 100 test cases. Assume that like the way how you have written 100 different classes or 100 different individual Python files. So, will you execute all the 100 test cases one after another? Do you think it's really suggested to execute all 100 one after another? It's not, right? Usually, with a single click, how many automation cases we have created roughly for say 100,000, something like that? All the things should be executed in a single click. For such reason, and moreover, after the execution, we need to get a detailed test execution report also. Okay, once the scripts got executed, I need to get a report like how many scripts got executed, in which how many got passed and how many got a failed. Such kind of a detailed test execution report also I want to generate. In such situations, definitely my requirement is implementing unit testing in a automation scripts. So as we have already created a couple of scripts, let's see what exactly this unit testing is, how to create a couple of examples in a unit testing, and then how can I convert my Selenium test script into a unit testing script, and then execution, and then followed by a report generation. So this is what the process is. So if you observe the definition about this one, we have given some theoretical points, what I have elaborated right now. So Python unit test libraries inherits the root of the third party information, which is a PyUnit. And like JUnit, we have a key components in Python unit testing also. Here are the list of five different key components, whatever we have in a Python. The first one is a test case. So assume that if you remember the scenarios, guys, the scenario one, uh, log into Salesforce application. The scenario two, handle drop down, right? Handle drop down. The scenario three, handle multiple windows in Salesforce. See, we have created a three different scenarios in a three different classes. Every scenario I can create it in a test case. So here, the terminology you have in a test case, it's going to be a specific piece of functionality. So this scenario one, I can treat it as a test. This one, I can treat it as another test, and I can create a three different tests. And a test suite means in a single file, I can specify all these three tests, and with a single run, all the three tests will be executed, which we can call it as a suite. Group of test cases executed, we can call it as a test suite. Okay, in this example I am giving as count as a 3, but in your real world you can go with a 10, 15, 20, 30, depending on your functionality. You can configure your test suite and you can execute your test cases within this suite. The bottom line is a suite means a group of test cases executed in an order. We can call it as a test suite. And then the test loader is, it's a Python class which loads the test cases and suites created locally from an external data sources like a file. It releases a test suite object that carries those test cases in a suite. So it helps in executing the test cases and as well as the test suites. And the next one is a test runner. It provides a runnable interface for the execution of the test and deliver the test results to the user. See, all these things should be executed, right? A runner class will be required to execute all the stuff. And the test report means once after the execution got completed, we need to get a detailed report stating that how many scripts got executed, in which how many got passed, how many got failed, everything we will be seeing in a report. So today what we are going to do means we will see how to create a test case, and then how to configure a test suite, and then how to execute a test case and a test suite, followed by a test report generation also. Okay, this is an high level overview. And the next point out over here is, let me jump on to my PyCharm editor, and here I'm creating one directory, a simple folder, and I'm naming it as a unit test. See, unit testing I have created, and in which I'm creating a file, and I'm naming that particular file as demo example 1. Okay, demo example Python file. As soon as I created this file, I am naming that, in that file I'm creating a class, and I am naming that particular class as a sample1 class. Okay, sample1 is my class, and in this particular class I'm defining two methods. My ultimate objective out over here is, in this class I just want to define two methods. One is an adding a method, and another is a subtraction of a method. Def add. So I just want to go add a comma b. Self is a by default, which we are getting for every method, and print a plus b. The similar way, I'm defining def subtraction, again a comma b, and here print a minus b. So here if you observe guys, this adding a method contains sum of two numbers, and we are printing the sum to the console. The similar way, the subtraction method contains a subtraction of two methods and printing that output to the console as well. That's it. We have created this. Now, the next one, what I am doing means I'm creating again a new file, and unit test example. And this time, whenever I'm using a PyCharm, whenever I'm creating a new file, it is prompting with the different options. Among all those things, I'm selecting Python unit test. I'm just selecting this Python unit test. As soon as I selected the Python unit test, this is what the syntax it got imported. The ninth line, as of now, I'm commenting. I don't want to use this ninth line. I just want to comment it for some time. And on top of my test script, the first line it got imported, which is import a unit test. This unit test is a Python module using which we can perform any other operations. So here class, and the name of this class is a my test case, and here we are using unit test dot test case. So let me switch back to my documentation. See here, we can create a one or more test by inheriting the test class available in unit test module. To add a case, we also need to provide the corresponding test method. So at the time of a creation, definitely by default, you have to specify unit testing dot test case, as this is a test case specific to a unit testing. And by default, it created a method for us, dev test something. I don't want to use that particular method. So whatever the test you are creating here, every test should follow a test keyword. So dev test adding numbers. Okay, dev test adding numbers. And here I want to call the number method or the sum method, whatever I have created in a demo example. So here from demo example, right? From demo example, import. What is your class name in that demo example? My class name in the demo example is a sample1. See here, I'm importing this one. So with this line, what we are doing means we are importing that demo example Python file in this class, so that with the name dot sample1 dot, see, I can call my add method, and I am specifying 3 comma 5, and the similar way I can add my subtraction method also. So in this unit test, this is my first test which is trying to add the numbers. And the similar way here also, I can create a one more method, def test subtraction numbers, and a self here sample1 dot, and even sample1 dot subtraction 5 comma 2. Okay, Like this, I'm just calling this one. And now let me run my test script. Run unit test. This is what my unit test is. I'm just trying to execute it. And here it's getting failed. Let us see what exactly this is a unit test and why it is getting failed here. Error yield. Self-test method call to the failure. Okay. It's having an issue with the import module name. So here from demo example import a sample one. No module found with the demo example. See, the issue out over here is my file name is a demo example one, right? My file name is a demo example one. I have a given as a demo example. Let me try running my script again and still it got a fail. Let us see the error message again. Process finished and sample method test a subtraction of a number sample 1 sub 5 comma 2. See, it is having an issue in calling this method, right? A sample dot subtraction. Okay, so missing one required positional argument. Okay, so we have these arguments. Okay, let me try adding self comma 3 comma 5 self comma 5 comma 2. This method is having self a comma b self a comma b, right? Let me run my script again and see this time. See here, this time it got executed successfully and the output got a printed to the console. See, run two tests and it took this much of time in executing the test, and this is the output it got a printed. So in this example guys, if you clearly observe, what I have done means I created one class with the two methods inside that, and I created a unit test in which I called those two methods. So next thing is, let us try to create a new unit test directly in which define logic and see whether you can execute it or not. Okay, let me create my unit test here. New Python file again. Unit test example 2. Select the unit test file. I don't want this line. I'm deleting it for now. And even I don't want this default method also. I'm deleting it. And here what I am doing right now means, so def for suppose in the previous example, for every test we are defining a test keyword, right? So assume that I'm not defining that keywords. Add a number and add number. Print 2 plus 3. The same way, def sub number and again print 5 minus 2. That's it. I haven't done anything, guys. Let me run my test script. When my script is executing, empty suit. See here, guys, it is returning as an empty suit. So it means it's mandatory for us to add test for every test keyword for every test, then only it will recognize it and it will execute it. See, ran two tests and output okay got a printed to the console, and the sum and subtraction got a printed to the console. So this is the way how to create a unit test. The reason why I have a created this example is, earlier I have a created one class and then a unit test, and the unit test I call this example. Few questions will rise in our mind. Why we are creating two classes? Why can't we define it in a single thing? See, like this I can define it in a single class. But if you have info in a two different classes, this is the way how to access that particular information. Good enough, done the deal. And then the next point out over here is, so once after we have created a simple unit test, the next scenario is, for every unit test, let me switch to the documents, we can add an assertions. Okay, whether you want to execute it, once after the execution we have to add an assertion to your test script. So let me switch back to my editor. Let me open the previous script and we can add an assertion. In order to add the assertion, self dot assert equals. Okay, so I would like to verify this one. So what I want to do right now is, 2 comma 2. See here, I'm giving equals as a 2 comma 2. Now, when I run my test script here, this time it's executing successfully. For suppose 2 comma 12, I know these two are not equal. When I run my unit test, the assertion got a fail. It is displaying. Depending on your test case requirement, you can add any kind of an assertion to your test script. Immediately, a quick question will rise in our mind. What are all the various types of assertions we have? So directly, we can type self.assert. It will display the list of assertions whatever we have in Python, or what Python supports, all the assertions list will display. If you want to explore all the assertions, see, we have a reference link which has more details about the various types of assertions supported. Okay, various types of assertions supported. Good enough. So now what I want to do right now is I want to create a scenario wherein which log into Salesforce application. So here create a unit test which will log in into a Salesforce application. In order to do so, guys, the first and the most important thing which we need to know out over here is setup teardown. Okay, setup and a teardown, we can call it as usually the annotations. What these setup and a teardown? See here, we have a setup class, teardown, and even the teardown class. We have a four annotations are there. What these four annotations will do means, assume that, see, this is an example. Your test has your test case has unit test has four tests inside that. As of now, in the previous example, we studied two tests, hence we have a given as a two tests. So if you see setup keywords, it will execute before executing content in test, and tear down keyword means it will execute after executing content in the test. Okay, if you see by default a test setup, only setup means if there are two tests in your scripts, before executing every test, the content present in setup will be executed. Okay, the content present in a setup will be executed. If you go with a setup class, if there are a multiple tests in a single unit test, before executing all the tests, the content present in this setup class will be executed, and it's only once. The same way tear down. So if there are two tests, after executing the logic in the after executing the logic in the test, it will execute content in that. If there are two tests, two times the tear down logic will be executed. And if you switch to the tear down class, if there are a multiple tests within a single unit test, after executing all the tests, the content present in a tear down will be executed. Okay, that's fine. This looks like bit simple. So before switching on to this scenario, let me create an example with setup and a tear down so that we can easily understand that. So here I'm creating a Python file, unit test example 3. I'm creating a unit file with a unit test example 3. And here, let me delete this line. I don't want it. And even I just want to delete this line too. And here in this def test, I'm defining my test name as, okay, I'm defining my test name as uh, add, okay, ads, and print test one. The similar way, I would like to define another test, div test sub sub, and here print test 2. So I have a defined two different tests here. On top of it, here I am defining def setup. See, whenever we are defining it as a setup, it's representing none logic. So I'm defining setup. and here print setup method which will execute before every test. Okay, which will execute before every test. The same way def tear down, delete this none, and write down the logic. Print tear down will execute after every test. Okay, let me run my unit test here and see the console, guys. See here, before executing the content in the test one, the setup logic got executed. And after executing the content in the test one, the tear down logic got executed. The same it repeated for two tests. If you have 100 tests, all the logics will be specified and splitted in this way. Okay, the same way, let us see with a setup class and a tear down class. So I'm copying the same example and I'm pasting the example with a name as a unit test 4. Okay, unit test 4, I created the name, and here I'm reviewing setup and a tear down, and here I'm defining as def setup a class. This time I'm defining this setup a class, and print class will execute only once before all the tests. The same way, okay, def tear down class print, okay, print, it will execute after all the tests. See here, when I run my test at this time, the assertion got a failed. Something I have a missed. Okay, ran it in 0.03. Type setup handled. Okay, what we have done, why it is missing. So the setup class missing one required parameter CLS. Okay, so CLS dot print and CLS dot print. Let me try to run this script again. See, it's trying to execute the script and CLS failed, assertion failed. So whenever we are using this test, it's getting failed with this CLS. Okay, so let us see what is the issue. Setup class and a tear down class, and my requirement is it needs to execute. Just a minute, guys. Let me look into this why it is not executing. Okay, the setup class and a tear down class. Okay, so one thumb rule which I have a missed is, let me switch to the documentation here. So whenever we are using these setup methods or setup class and a tear down class, it's mandatory for us to use at the rate class method decorator for all the setup classes and a tear down classes. Let's jump back here, and I am defining it as at the rate class method. I'm using the same at the rate class method on top of this one also. Okay, on top of this one also. And now let me try to run my script this time. Again, my script is getting failed. So I don't want these CLS instance in order to print the info. Let me delete these CLS instance and let me try to run my unit test again. Okay, this time it got executed successfully, but if you observe, the content in the setup and a teardown got executed only once. Okay, good enough. Immediately, a quick question will rise in our mind. We understood what exactly a setup is and what exactly a teardown is, but where are we going to use this concept in our automation world? Right? Let us continue this topic in the next session. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.